Welcome in. This is Dumb Guy Loves Movies, and I'm Mike Bassano. I'm a dumb guy that loves movies. And this week we're going to be discussing The Notebook, 2004, written by Nicholas Sparks, based on his novel, directed by Nick Cassavetes, starring Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. This movie's a classic. It's an absolute, undeniable classic. It came out 20 years ago, which is kind of shocking. I don't know. Feels like since 2019, years have stopped mattering, but it came out 20 years ago. And it's interesting just because Ryan Gosling just stole the Oscars, right? I mean, did with the I'm Just Ken performance, one of the great things we've ever seen in Oscars history. And now we get to appreciate I think, one of the greatest love stories ever told. And told through two people that went on to have massive success, right? Both Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling, and Nick Cassavetes too. John Q, Alpha Dog. I've seen Alpha Dog like 30 times. I love that movie. I know Alpha Dog, very different from The Notebook, but that's the mark of a great director, of a great artist, to be able to take two completely different kinds of stories and bring magic to both of them. The story of Noah and Allie is something that people have talked about since it came out. I know that people call it cheesy, whatever. F them. Who cares? Who cares what they say? We love the movie The Notebook. That's why we're here. And I really can't wait to go through this kind of blow by blow. But this is one of those movies where afterward, if you're not crying, like if you haven't cried at all, if you just watch this with a stone face, I think you might have a legitimate problem. Like you need to talk to I don't want to go as far to say serial killer, but a little bit in my head I'm thinking serial killer. I'm sorry. If you go through this and you don't have any emotions, I don't know what's wrong with you, because this is one of the most impactful movies I've ever seen. By the end of this movie, I'm always in a puddle of tears. I just rewatched it for countless times. If you watch this show, you know I'm obsessive. I watch movies a lot of times. This is one of those movies where it doesn't matter how many times you watch it, puddle of tears afterward. Also, considering we discussed La La Land just 2 episodes ago, and this is episode 5, clearly I just love seeing Ryan Gosling in love stories. That's just part of who I am as a person. I don't know. I didn't think about that. I wasn't aware of that in my life, but now I am fully aware of it, because why else, right? Why else would I do 2 love stories featuring Ryan Gosling in just a few weeks? So let's dive into it. Let's do it. This is clearly, it's so funny because anyone I talk to about this movie now, they always want to diagnose Noah and Allie with mental illness, which, to be fair, hanging off of a Ferris wheel and saying that if you don't go out with me, I'm going to kill myself. I mean, it's hard to sit here and say that that's not indicative of something. But it is interesting because 2024, people just have, I think, a greater understanding of psychology overall. So we always want to try to diagnose everyone. But I'll say this. That kind of love that Noah has for Allie, that's the love we all want. It really is. And I know she has a lot of love for him too, but let's make no mistake. What Noah goes through, his journey, that's the kind of love we all want, from beginning to end. And it starts with, hey, E from Entourage. Well, I wrote so that we get Southern E. Kevin Conley's awesome, by the way. He's not just E. He's great in everything. He was in John Q, too, another Nick Cassavetes movie. He's a phenomenal actor, and I know he's doing a lot behind the camera now, and I'm really excited for him. He gets this small part in this movie, but still impactful. And that scene, I think, is one that sticks out in everybody's minds, because who doesn't want to be pursued that way? Who doesn't want someone to really just go for it? There's no ego in Noah in that scene, right? There's no ego. We aren't seeing a guy that's guarding himself. that's worried about rejection. We're seeing someone that saw what he wanted, and he's going after it. Doesn't matter what you think, what anybody thinks. He's going after it. Risking his life, quite literally, for a girl he just saw. That's what we all want. As it's coming out of my mouth, I'm hearing how toxic it is, but I don't care. I'm sticking with this. So we have the psychotic meeting, the Patrick Bateman meeting, as I call it. Just because, it's one of those things where this guy is clearly, he's out there. But I love that. I love that we have the meeting this way, because now everything he does as a character from this point forward, we buy it. Yeah. To read the story to her, to be so devoted, to build the house for her, to do everything for Allie. We believe it, because if that's how it's starting, there is nothing that we aren't going to buy from this guy. And I really love that. All right, now, I'm a bird too. That's so sweet when she pretends to be a bird. She goes, "Are you a bird?" He's like, "Hey, if you're a bird, I'm a bird." That is that's one of those scenes, I don't know why it sticks out to me so much more than so many others. But the "I'm a bird" scene is really beautiful, because I think it shows a free spirit and somebody who's creative and not being judged by somebody else, right? Because what she's doing, many people, I don't want to say most people because I don't know most people, but many people would probably be like, "Oh my gosh, you're so weird," right? You'd probably get an eye roll. But in that moment, that's not what she gets. She gets understanding. She gets love. And somebody who says, it doesn't matter what you are. Whatever you are, I want to be that too. So that scene always sticks out to me, and I think it's so well done. The way they tell that story right from the beginning, that this is true devotion. Also, I live in Los Angeles now, but I'm originally from Kansas, and hoedowns are fun, dude. They are. I mean, I love that scene just because it makes me think of hoedowns, which I grew up in Kansas City. I didn't go to a ton of hoedowns, but I've been to hoedowns. I've been to those things. They're pretty sweet. They're good times, I'm telling you. Even some country bars out here that aren't too bad. Getting the water scene is fun. When he yells like, "Get in the water! Get in the water!" That's so fun, man. It just shows that I think it's a big part of the love story is that showing them falling in love, showing them have those moments where they're really sweet with each other. We know the fighting's coming. It's always coming. You kidding me? Any kind of relationship, if you've ever been in a relationship that's similar to this, the fighting's always going to be intense because the loving is also very intense. It's intense the whole way around. There are other relationships that you could have been in that are easy, more peaceful, less fighting, but the loving isn't as intense either. Intense fighting usually equals intense loving. Sometimes it doesn't, and then you're just not right for each other. But in this situation, particularly, Noah and Allie, the fighting's coming because the loving is so strong. And that getting the water scene, I thought it was almost like a foreshadow of like, he's a little on that side of like to be the one to yell, "Get in the water," and she's on that side of like, no. So, but they meet obviously in the middle where he becomes softer with her, she jumps in the water, but we see sort of the preliminary, this is how they're going to be and this is how they're going to fight relationship thing, which I find fascinating in a lot of ways. Okay, Noah with the rich people. I have felt that way. Yeah. I don't mix well in that crowd, but I sometimes find myself in that crowd of people who are of means, if you say. It's a lot, dude. It's a lot. It is. It's uncomfortable. I feel like I'm definitely not good enough for the girl that I'm with in those situations, and that everybody's thinking it. Right? And they are. I really like the choice to put Noah in a dark color and everybody else in light colors. I think it's actually black and white, if I remember right. in that scene, because it is showing that he is, without question, the black sheep of this whole situation. One of these things are not like the other. He's the one that's not like everybody else at the table. And that sets us up for what is the catalyst for the conflict of the entire film, right? Allie's family believing that Noah isn't cut from the right cloth, that he's not good enough for her, which is, I think, a little ridiculous, because when we're talking about love, we really want to put the confines of society on there. Fucking society. What they decide is right, what they decide is wrong, what they decide, oh, well, you're from this social class, so you should be. Fuck you. That's not how humanity works. That's how years and years and years ago, some people who wanted to structure humanity decided it worked that way. But love can't. It just can't. All right. Yeah, not a fan of her parents. I don't think anyone, her parents suck. God. Every time. Throughout the whole movie, that's like a consistent thing that I always think. I'm like, God, parents are terrible. And there's one line that I find incredibly interesting, because I think I hear it differently now than I did when I was a kid and saw this movie. The line where the mother says she'll end up heartbroken or pregnant. When I was a kid, I remember that line, and I was like, screw you. Who the hell are you? You don't know. Walking around like you know. You don't know. And then now, being an adult, hearing that line and being older than 17, I'm like, oh. But I don't want to believe it, I don't want to become jaded. I don't want to become like Allie's parents, which I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. And you know what? More times than not, a lot more times than not, they're going to be right. But not every time. You don't know for sure. Heartbroken, pregnant, yeah. And by the way, sometimes pregnant isn't the worst thing in the world, is it? I know people who had unexpected pregnancies and ended up becoming the happiest people imaginable. To reach back a little bit to what we discussed a couple of episodes ago, another Ryan Gosling movie, La La Land, a movie where both main characters got exactly what they thought they wanted. Remember that? Both main characters, Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling, they get exactly what they wanted. Gosling gets Sebs, he has his jazz place. Emma Stone becomes a big movie star. Everyone's gotten exactly what they set out to get in the very beginning of the film before they met each other. And neither one of them looks as happy as they were when they were together. Sometimes what we think we want isn't at all what we really want. So I will still, as an adult, stand defiantly against Allie's parents in that scene, and her mother especially. I'm sure the father was also on board, but the mother's the one who says it. She'll either end up heartbroken or pregnant. You don't know that. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And even if it goes pregnant, maybe that's not the worst thing that's ever happened. So when she says I'm talking too much, oh yeah, this is going to jump back. This is a little out of order, but right before that, when they have the first time, and she says I'm talking too much, aren't I? Like, okay, I'll just shut up. It's such a relatable scene. It's probably one of the most relatable scenes of the entire movie, because so much of this movie is not necessarily, I guess it's relatable, but as much as I would love to row a boat through my own private pond filled with an insane amount of ducks, I understand that many ducks in a pond is probably hard to get. So there are certain things about this film that aren't necessarily like super relatable. That's so relatable, and the way Nick shot that was incredible. Their first time, because it's always anxious, right? You think back to your first time. I was an anxiety-filled mess. Was it fun? I don't know, maybe a little bit, but for the most part, I was just in my head going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So the way that Allie is behaving while she's going through her first time is very relatable to me. I'm not cool enough to be the guy that's like, yeah, I got this whole thing figured out. Like, no, I was the guy that's like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. She's going to think I'm a total idiot. I'm going to screw this up horribly. Just a total mess. That said, in the end, you look back at it as a very beautiful time, right? You look back on it and it's very beautiful. It's very sweet. Very innocent. And I think that's really nice about this movie is that there are a lot of those beautiful, sweet, innocent things that we can relate to when we look back at our own lives. And I think that's a big reason why I enjoy watching The Notebook so much. And why I watch it so many times over and over again is it's a very relatable movie. And it's just so well done on all fronts. So, very relatable with the anxiety for Allie the first time they're together. The first time they're together intimately. Okay, Rachel McAdams in a wedding dress should be... It's so well done in that scene where she's going to marry James Marsden, and I can't remember his character name, but she's going to marry him, and we see Rachel McAdams in this wedding dress. She's so elegant and has such an incredible aura about her as a person, just as a human being. You know, even beyond just Allie, Rachel McAdams as a human has this grand presence. But it's done in this perfect way where we aren't that happy because we're like, no. What about Noah? What are we doing? So it's this really interesting scene to me, purely because I'm watching it and I'm thinking, why am I not happy? Why is this elegant woman in this beautiful dress not giving me the emotional reaction that I expected it to? And the answer is, frankly, because I think she's marrying the wrong man. So it's an interesting scene. I love the way they did it because it gave me that very different emotional reaction than I think most scenes where you're involving a woman with an amazing aura and a great presence in a wedding dress. So I love that. When she shows up, I wanted to see if you were okay. That's interesting, isn't it? I wanted to see if you were okay. I always get like low-key triggered by that scene. Like when you think he's okay? It's before I knew she never got the letters. Or I guess no, we knew she never got the letters. Before he knew that she never got the letters. I'm expecting him to like, are you serious? Am I okay? You know, that's such an interesting and a very, I think, it's just one of those scenes where there's a lot of this movie that triggers me, and I think that's part of the reason why I love it. That's part of watching movies is getting triggered. It's if I want to watch something just to be comfortable, I have reruns of Modern Family that I watch constantly, and that makes me feel comfortable. But there are other movies, and most movies, which is why I watch them, I think, obsessively, is because I like that feeling of being a little triggered and kind of being like, why are you here? What is this? You know, because I like to get lost in it and kind of forget what happens next. And, you know, when they have that reconnection and we see them in the pond full of ducks, I want a pond full of ducks so badly. I really do. I want a pond full of ducks, and I'm not going to apologize for that. During that scene, something that I am always struck by, and I think it's something that a lot of people are struck by and why we love seeing Ryan Gosling in romantic roles. Looking in his face during that scene, there's nowhere in the world he would rather be. Right? We see Noah, and it's almost this amazing moment where everything he's wanted is here. It's complete. Life has come back to him after all these years. It happened. It had to feel like a dream. That's a really great moment. And it's one that I think is really impactful. A letter every day for 365 days. Take a second with me and really think through one letter per day for 365 days. That's unbelievable. And I would love to sit here and be like, yeah, I would do it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I would love to say it that I would be 360. I think my feelings would get hurt after the first 10. Just being honest. I think after the first 10, my feelings would get hurt. 365 days. You got to think through the day-to-day of that. That's going every single day. I will write and send this person a letter with no response, no understanding that they're not actually getting to her, right? Not until after we have the big moment. It's not over. It still isn't over. That's right. It wasn't over. It still isn't over. Not until that. Before that, I just thinking through 365 days with no response, no encouragement. It's unbelievable. And I know it's over the top. It's a story. But allow yourself to believe that in reality. Allow yourself to believe that happening in the real world. That's a level of devotion that is, I think, really beautiful. Others might say fit for a straitjacket, but I think it's really beautiful. And obviously an iconic moment. An iconic scene that's replayed over and over again that people talk about in the world of romance movies from beginning to the end of time. I don't think there will be a time. To me, that is up there with, like, this is what's popping in my head. Frankly, my dear, I just don't give a damn. Clark Gable, Gone with the Wind. I look at that scene the same way. With it's not over, it still isn't over. With the kiss. And I gotta tell you, I was thinking this while I was watching it today. When they sleep together after he says he wrote her every day for 365 days. I was like, well, how do you not sleep with him? My God. How could anyone resist that one? That's just the fullness you have to feel in your heart hearing that. It's unreal. Yeah, and then, wow. Yeah, her mom sucks. I just wrote down her mom sucks. And I've had moms like that. I think most people have, where no one's good enough, and especially not the one that you want is good enough. And I think we've all dealt with that, at least in some capacity, from and maybe not even parents, friends, people close to you that are just like, no, I don't like this. And, it's for whatever reason. They probably think they're helping. But God, her mom sucks. And he said, we fight. Yeah, they get into it, and she's like, we're fighting already. He's like, that's what we do. I love that. Because fighting is important in a relationship. I've had relationships where I've fought a lot. I've had relationships where I've fought a little. And thinking back on those relationships, yeah, fighting is a good thing. Now, there's a tipping point, obviously. And there has to be love along with the fighting. There are times where it becomes too much. That's absolutely fair. But fighting is such an important thing. Because usually if you're not fighting, somebody's being fake. Right? They're going with the flow because they don't want to rock the boat for whatever reason it might be. There has to be some push and pull. It has to happen. Now, not to a level where it's ridiculous, and hopefully over time everyone learns conflict resolution skills and you get a little better at it and it's not just screaming at each other. But, emotions run high, and they're supposed to run high. That's important. It's important to have in a relationship is a high level of emotion. And I think that's why we fall so in love with this story and so in love with the way it was told through screen, because there's such a heightened level of emotion in it in every single turn. I love that. What do you want? That is one of my favorite. It's probably my personal favorite. Like, I think the most iconic is it's not over, or it wasn't over, it still isn't over. But I think What Do You Want's my personal favorite because it's something that everyone, myself especially, can relate to. And sometimes I can relate to both sides of it. Sometimes I'm the one going, what do you want? And this is not that simple. It's like, it is. What do you want? If you want it, yes. If you don't want it, no. It's that easy. But then there are other times where I'm on that other side. I'm on the alley side, and I'm going, well, I don't know. It's not that simple. So that to me is probably my favorite line, my favorite sequence or part of a scene in all the Notebook is, what do you want? And man, Gosling's raw fire and emotion in that. Like, stop thinking about what everybody else wants and start thinking about what you want. That's just, God, you can feel that, can't you? So good. So, after that, we leave the dock and we go inside to the candlelit dinner. That's when the tears start for me every time. Every time. And this is one of those movies where even talking about it, I'm fighting back some tears. And I know I've cried a lot on this show. That's fine. It's what I do. I cry. I'm a crier. Can't help it. But when they sit down in that candlelit dinner inside, and then Allie comes back to Noah in the story and in the retelling of the story. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful moments in the history of cinema. And it's something that sticks with me forever. From the first time I saw it. From the very first time I saw this movie, from the very first time I sat down and watched The Notebook, that's a moment that's stuck in my head forever. And I love it. It's just such a gripping moment. And then our time with Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams is over. Right? And of course the heart-wrenching moment that I almost just glossed over it because I didn't want to get into it. the heart-wrenching moment where the Alzheimer's comes back and we feel so deeply for him, when his kids come and they're like, "Hey, Dad, you're a crazy person." They don't say that, but they're like, But then when you see their story, and it's like he's been this. He's been this the whole time. Absolutely nuts for her. And that's, I think, why this movie has stood the test of time. Why we're sitting here 20 years later with tears coming out of my eyes and me talking about it, is that we all want that. That person that's willing to go to those lengths. We all want that. Read me this and I'll come back to you. Written in the book, in the story. This is our story. A note written by Allie. And the whole ending, with them falling asleep together and then ending their journey together, that's... It's an ending that sticks with me for a really long time. Every time I watch it, I'll be thinking about this a few hours from now, guaranteed. And that's the beauty of movies. That's the beauty of film. And the great ones that really pull the emotion from you in a big way. I am grateful that I get to sit here and talk about it. I'm grateful that I'm alive during a time where a movie like The Notebook exists. And the movies like we have now exists. It's like, it's a great time to be alive for movies. Oh, and on that note, this has been Dumb Guy Loves Movies. I'm Michael Bassano. I'm a dumb guy that loves movies. And thank you so much for going on this journey with me. Have an amazing rest of your day.